what's important in a portfolio now as a consequence of volatility, as a consequence of risk, as a consequence of the fact that the resource market is no longer cheap? You know, when we were talking in 2000, 2001, 2002, gold was an uncrowded trade. Silver was a four-letter word. But that's not the case anymore. It's popular, so that stuff isn't cheap. How do we deal with these things? How do we deal with the fact that the resource trades aren't cheap trades anymore, that there's volatility? In the first instance, liquidity. Have some cash. It's okay with me if your cash is bullion, but have some cash. I've heard investment commentators say that they're afraid to hold cash. My own mother said, "Rick, you have too much cash in my account. I'm losing 4.5% a year on my cash." And I said, "Mom, I want you to think about whether you think losing 4.5% is better than losing 40. You have to have cash. When this volatility occurs, the cash will do two wonderful things for you. It will give you the ability and it will give you the courage to act in down markets. There were other people who saw in 2008 that stuff was cheap, but they were broke. It doesn't matter if stuff is cheap if you can't do anything about it. You have to have the ability, and the cash will give you the courage. So have some liquidity. The second thing, and I think that's the most important part of a portfolio right now, and I'm talking about speculative resource portfolios. The second thing that you have to do is we all have to think about the fact that despite the fact that we might like gold, or we might like natural gas, or we might like whatever it is, in these small companies, it's the people that make the difference. You need to speculate in your portfolio on ability. Don't be a gold investor in terms of these stocks. Don't be a silver investor in terms of these stocks. Don't be an oil investor in these stocks. You don't want to do that. If you are speculating on exploration, you want to buy an Andy Wallace, you want to buy a Ron Netolitsky, you want to buy a Lucas Lundin, you want to buy a Ross Beatty, you want to buy somebody who, since you're exploring for something, can actually find it. It's very, very important. How many people here heard my interview just with Andy Wallace? That's really important. You want to find people who have proven track records in the task at hand. What I tried to get Wallace to say, that he was too polite to say, is that he succeeded against his competitors because he spent his whole life in Nevada. He spent 30 years looking for gold in Nevada. And he was competing against guys who, until 3 months before, had been looking for copper in Quebec. Very, very, very different discipline. And he's a passionate guy. He's a patient guy. He's a realistic guy. When you guys look at the junior mining sector, 90% of these companies are worth nothing. They're worth zero. All of the wealth creation occurs in a very, very, very small subset. And the best, although not the only determinant of success, is the ability of the people running the company and their dedication to the specific task at hand that you and they have assigned themselves. This is very, very, very important. This is a lousy time to buy the waterfront in gold and silver stocks because 90% of them are run by butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers, not geologists. Doug Casey famously said a lot of the guys in this market, if it weren't for the junior stock business, would wear a mask and a gun when they went into a 7-Eleven. You know, I can't stress this enough. This is really a people game. Value. Value. I've heard people say recently that XYZ company is cheap because it has a $20 million market cap. You look at the company, they have $1.98 in the treasury. They're spending $200,000 a month. They have a piece of orangutan pasture in Indonesia and a piece of, I don't know, jackrabbit pasture in Nevada. Nobody on the company, in the company 2 years ago could spell Indonesia. And this is cheap because all the other similar scams are priced at $40 million. I mean, this is truly insane. One of the things that people at a conference like this tell us is that we need to be in junior gold and silver stocks because the government is counterfeiting the currency. In other words, we need to buy worthless stocks because the dollar's going down. Remember this in the context of value. The free market can always do better than the government, even when it comes to counterfeiting. The Canadian dealer network can print share certificates, phony share certificates, faster than the US Treasury can do it. Don't ever forget that. The value is very, very important.